transatlantic slave trade was one of the darkest chapters in human history, spanning roughly from the 15th to the 19th century. It involved the forced transportation of millions of Africans across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas, where they were enslaved and exploited primarily for labor on plantations. European powers, especially Portugal, Britain, France, Spain, and the Netherlands, played key roles in organizing and profiting from this trade. The trade formed part of the so-called triangular trade, in which European goods were shipped to Africa, enslaved people were transported to the Americas, known as the Middle Passage, and raw materials like sugar, cotton, and tobacco were then sent back to Europe. The conditions enslaved Africans faced during their capture, transport, and enslavement were brutal and inhumane, leading to immense suffering and loss of life. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade continues to impact societies around the world, contributing to systemic racism, economic inequality, and ongoing cultural trauma. Its history is essential for understanding the foundations of modern Western economies and global relations. In today's video, we will be looking at the after effects of the transatlantic slave trade. Let us dive right in. The transatlantic slave trade is often spoken of as history, but its after effects still shape the world we live in, from inequality and racism to economic imbalances and cultural loss. This is not just a story of the past, it's our present reality. What was the transatlantic slave trade? Between the 1500s and 1800s, over 12 million Africans were forcibly taken from their homelands. Ripped from their families, they were packed into ships and sent across the Atlantic. Three-part system: Europe to Africa, goods; Africa to Americas, slaves; Americas to Europe, raw materials. Conditions on slave ships: cramped, deadly. Many died before even reaching the Americas. The impact on Africa: the trade devastated African societies. Entire generations of young people were lost. Political instability grew as kingdoms fought over trade with Europeans. Communities destabilized, traditional systems broken, long-term development delayed, Africa's wealth and human capital depleted, enslaved life in the Americas. In the Americas, enslaved Africans worked brutal hours on plantations. They built roads, cities, and economies with no freedom and often no recognition. Slavery in the Caribbean, US, Brazil, etc. Inhumane conditions, constant surveillance, physical punishment, cultural erasure attempts, forced loss of language, religion, names, resistance, rebellions, cultural survival, music and stories, economic legacy. Slavery built wealth, just not for the enslaved. The profits funded industrialization, built global empires, and created generational wealth in the West. British, Dutch, French wealth, foundations of global capitalism, slave insurance and the rise of finance, wealth gaps, why some nations thrived while others were left behind, social racial legacy. Even after abolition, the legacy continued through segregation, racism, and systemic injustice. Institutional racism in post-slavery societies: Jim Crow in the US, apartheid in South Africa, racial stereotypes rooted in slavery narratives, the psychological impact of centuries of dehumanization, modern inequality. Today, you can still trace inequality back to slavery. From wealth gaps to education access, the playing field was never level. Intergenerational poverty, disparities in education, healthcare, and housing, disproportionate policing and incarceration rates, global inequality, north-south divide. If you enjoy this video, kindly press the like and subscribe button. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.